Good morning, everybody. May I request everybody to take seats, please? Welcome. Welcome to this 37th. Mic is on. A hearty welcome to 37th Annual Conference of the Indian Association for Study of Population. I welcome you all on behalf of the IASP and IEZ. Now we will have the inaugural function. Okay. Oh yeah, you call. Okay. No, आ जाएगा ना once we start. Yeah. So, yeah. I have the pleasure to call on to the dais Professor Manoj Panda, who will be chairing this session. May I request Professor Manoj Panda to please come on to the dais. He will be honored with a bouquet. Please. May I request President of the IASP, Dr. UV Somayazulu, to kindly come on to the dais, and he also will be honored with a bouquet. I have the pleasure to call Mr. Diago, representative of UNFPA, who will be the chief guest of this function, to please come on to the dais. Please, sir. Mr. Diago will be honored with a bouquet. Please. I request Professor Mohan Chandra Nair, General Secretary of the IASP, also to come on to the dais, and he will be presented with a bouquet. I request Dr. Suresh Sharma, Treasurer of IASP, also to come on to the dais, and he will be presented with bouquet. Actually, we are missing the Honorable State Minister for Health, Anupriya Patel, and Sri C.K. Mishra, Secretary Health. We were expecting them, but because of the parliamentary things which are going on, we all know they have expressed their inability yesterday late evening. So we will start with the function right now. Thank you. Copies are there. Next. Now first we will have the lighting of the lamp by the dignitaries on the stage. We'll go for the lighting of the lamp. request Professor Manoj Panda to give the welcome address and the chair's inaugural speech.
Distinguished participants and honored guest, Dr. Diego Palacios, Dr. Soumya Julu, President of the Association, and other office bearers. I'm indeed delighted to welcome you all to the 37th Annual Conference of the Indian Association for the Study of Population, IASP. I'm also more delighted that it is being held at the Institute of Economic Growth. IASP and IEG have a long history of collaboration, and I'm happy that it is being continued, and I hope it will continue in future too. Today's guest, Mr. Diego Palacios, he brings with him his experiences, in fact, long experiences in different countries, such as Mexico, Cuba, and Peru. He was also involved in strategic planning at the UNFPA headquarters. We welcome you, sir. Conferences like this, they provide a platform for interactions among the young and old in the profession. For the young people, they look forward to learn something from their seniors. Often these seniors are also equally happy to meet the young, and they become a source of inspiration. This conference, starting today and lasting over the next 2 days, will be a fairly good platform for interactions. And I'm also happy that the conference theme, population and sustainable development, has been very topical. I look forward to interactions on this theme, to hear and learn from the participants. I would only like to say a little bit of historical background that, over the last 200 or 300 years, the overall quality of life in the world has changed substantially. It is partly due to the technological advancement that took place, particularly in the developed world in the 18th and 19th century. Partly due to the growth process that it initiated. Again, this process was augmented and enhanced by the public policy in several countries. And in quality of life, at least in the developed world today, is very different from what it was 250 or 300 years ago. Yet, in large part of the globe, particularly in the developing world, a very substantial proportion of people, they still have a level of living which is very similar to what the developed country had several centuries ago. Often we hear that such changes will be natural and it will be part of the development process. Growth will take care of that. But if we allow the growth and its accompanying urbanization as autonomous events and not do anything, then possibly the changes in quality of life for today's generation will not be possible. We have to wait several generations. And it is in this context that the social development goals or the earlier version, the MDGs, they have their relevance, that we need to steer public policy so that the effect of growth, urbanization, and other factors on several quality of life in not only just the developing country, but even in the developed world will be felt sooner than what it would have happened as an autonomous process. I told even in the developed world, because the developed world also, the quality of life needs to be improved because of, as we know, the environmental degradation has been part of the development process. And the SDGs try to provide different aspects of quality of life, including environment. Overall, what we see from the UN website, that the Sustainable Development Goal, they try to focus on the people, the planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. I think all these aspects are critical if we want sustainable development goals to be achieved, say, if not sooner, at least over the next 2 to 3 decades. And without the available technology from the developed world, and without reorienting some of our public policies in the developing countries, it may not be possible to achieve that if we leave it only to the growth and urbanization process. Then it will be much longer. And it is because of this that the UN, the national governments, as well as the local governments, they realized the significance of focusing on the SDGs. I think these are my initial remarks as I see the process as an economist. And I look forward to a very fruitful interaction. I wish the conference all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Panda, for that very thoughtful welcome address contextualizing the theme of the conference. Now may I request President of the IASP, Dr. Somyazulu, to give his address. Anil, where is that? No, this is the microphone. Yeah. My presentation. Where is that? Not coming. Anil, where is the presentation? This one. No.
Yeah. Good morning to everybody. Namaskar. The UNFPA Chief, Mr. Diago, Dr. Manoj Panda, Director of IEG, my co-office bearers, Professor Mohan Chandran Iyer, General Secretary, Dr. Suresh Sharma, Treasurer, respected Board of Trustee members, EC members. We are very fortunate to have several past presidents of IASP, starting from Professor Sudesh Nandia, Professor S.C. Gulati, and then Professor Arvind Pandey. And then we also have many senior demographers among us. It is a great privilege for me to be standing here and giving the presidential address on this auspicious occasion of inauguration of the 37th annual conference of our association. I will quickly make a brief PowerPoint presentation. This is the outline of my presentation. My presidential address is being distributed to you. Of course, the theme of this conference is population and sustainable development. We all know the significance of that theme, in the current days. But before getting into the theme of the conference, I want to say a few words about IASP, one of its kind association, professional association in India. And many youngsters may not be knowing also the history of our IASP. So I want to spend some time on that so that we all get sensitized about IASP, the kind of role it is expected to play, and then what needs to be done to ensure that IASP plays its role in the right direction. And then I will talk about SDGs and MDGs, the kind of linkages between them, how is the way forward for that. And then I will talk about the linkages specifically between population and the sustainable development. And then I will also talk about some special features of SDGs. And then finally, I will talk about some ideas relating to the kind of role demographers have to play in the context of SDGs, and specifically what role an association like IASP can play in achieving SDGs, in formulating plans for SDGs. If you look at Indian IASP's history, interest in the study of population, it got pronounced with the launching of planning for economic and social development immediately after India's independence. For instance, the first 5-year plan, it recognized population as an important parameter which needs careful consideration in the planning process when you are talking about development activities. And then the plan document also gave enough emphasis to need for population research-oriented development policies and programs. And then in continuation to that, the second 5-year plan also made considerable efforts in that direction. One important landmark was establishment of DTRC. Now we call it as IAPS. And then the scholars from social sciences and biomedical sciences also started paying attention to population-related issues and then linkages between population and development. And then in 1963, the first Asian Population Conference was held at Delhi. And then there were intensive interactions and deliberations between the demographers, Indian demographers. And then the idea was that to have an association of Indian demographers. And then in 1969, IUSSP General Conference was held at London. During that conference, big delegation from India was there in the IUSSP conference. And then we all know IUSSP always have these side meetings of different countries, population associations, demographers and all. So in one of the side meetings, it was forcefully reiterated that there is need for an association of Indian demographers. And then immediately after that, in the year of 1970, the demographers based in Delhi, where we are sitting now, they took the lead with active support from Professor Ashok Mitra and Sri Chandrasekhar. They were successive census commissioners and registrar generals of India. And then one subcommittee was formed with Sri S.P. Jain and R.P. Goyal they were given the responsibility of drafting the MOA for association. Thus, in February 1971, IASP was registered. Professor Ashok Mitra was the founder president. Sri Chandrasekhar and Sri Jain were the vice presidents. Professor Ashish Bose, who is again from Institute of Economic Growth. We are, happy to be in Institute of Economic Growth after several years and having this conference. It is really tribute to Professor Bose sir. And he was the founder general secretary. And then Sri R.P. Goyal was the treasurer, Professor Ghosh, Dr. Matthew, Professor Ramachandran, Dr. Purup, Dr. Praveen Visharia, Dr. Lahiri were the members of the association. And then immediately after that, in March 1972, the Journal of Indian Association for Study of Population, Demography India was registered. Now we will be having online edition launching, event in this inaugural function now. We are moving from offline to online to make it more visible, to make it more accessible to the demographers anywhere in the world. And then 1971 it was formed. 2021 will be celebrating 50th anniversary of IASP. And then I am very happy to inform you all that we are bidding for hosting the 2021 IUSSP International Population Conference on behalf of IASP. And if things work out, we'll be hosting the next 2021 International Population Conference in India on behalf of IASP. And then March 1973, duly elected Executive Council was formed. And then the first seminar was held in same IEG in 1972. And that seminar discussed the preliminary results of 1971 census. And then the first conference was again held at DTRC, the IAPS. And we are all, many of us are alumni of IAPS. And then we also had an international conference at NHW Delhi 1988. And then several, of course, of late we are only organizing the annual conferences, but during those days, several orientation courses, workshops were also organized. We need to pay attention to these activities as well. And then we also had South Asian Regional Conference. Finally, in 1989, we had the 11th General Conference of the IUSSP at Vigyan Bhavan. Late Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. I was fortunate to be part of that from IAPS as a PhD scholar. And then coming to the objectives of IASP, the first and foremost objective was to promote scientific study of population in general and India's population problems in particular. And this conference provides a platform to achieve this objective. And then the second objective is to promote, sponsor, and undertake research on different aspects of India's population. And then we have to encourage young demographers. I was talking to UNFPA chief. He was also saying that the capacity building of young demographers needs attention, and associations like IASP should make efforts to bridge the gap between the seniors and youngsters. I think the IASP's conference like this is the right platform for these kind of activities. And then organize conferences, seminars, meetings, and discussions groups to achieve these objectives, and publish books, monographs, journals, and newsletters. We are also bringing out the edited volumes of the conference, and I'm sure Dr. Sarvesh Sharma and Mohan Chandran Nair will make efforts to bring out conference volume after this conference as well. And then moving to the theme-related discussion, as all of us know, in September 2015, UN member states adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with 17 SDGs, aiming at ending poverty, fighting inequality and injustice, and also, like Dr. Panda mentioned, that to tackle climate change related issues. Somebody said there is only plan A, there is no plan B, because you have only planet A, you don't have planet B. So there is no second option. We have to follow these guidelines. And then if you look at the SDGs, broadly they can be categorized into three groups. Number one, extension of MDGs. The first 7 SDGs relate to this. And then the second category would be goals pertaining to inclusiveness in terms of employment, infrastructure, livelihood, industrialization, and distribution. Goals 8, 9, and 10. And then the third category, goals on sustainability and urbanization. The last 7 goals in terms of sustainable cities, the Smart City Initiative, Amrut and all we have now from the Government of India. And then life below water consumption and production, climate action, resources and environment, peace and justice, and means of implementation of and global partnerships for the same. And then, of course, SDGs have the benefit of the rich experience and the lessons learned while implementing the MDGs. And then that's why it is like a carry forward of the MDG agenda with much broader scope for its development achievement. So continuing and sustaining the momentum that was generated while addressing the additional challenges of inclusiveness, equity, urbanization, and further strengthening of the partnerships, including civil society organizations. You know, MDGs, the problem was that civil society participation was not much, whereas SDGs, right from the initial stage, there is a lot of emphasis for civil society participation and partnership. And thus, in my view, in fact, many development practitioners also felt that SDGs reflect the continuity and consolidation of the MDGs while making these more sustainable through strengthening the environment-related goals. And then what are the special features of MDGs? You know, the SDGs were evolved over a period of time and after a long and extensive consultative process, and that also included open working groups, civil society organizations participation, thematic consultations, country consultations, and then participation of the general public through face-to-face meetings and online mechanism, etc. While MDGs were focusing on 8 goals, 21 targets, and 63 indicators, SDGs include 17 goals with 169 targets. This has a bearing in subsequent part of my presentation. And then some Nobel laureates, they analyzed the data and they said that if the United Nations concentrates on the 19 top targets, it can get about $20 to $40 per dollar spent. You know, some kind of cost benefit analysis if you do that in the social benefits. And if the allocation is uniform across all the 169 targets, then the cost benefit analysis indicates that the benefit could be less than $10. Thus, you know, the resource allocation will be a crucial step here. You know, and one has to be smart in spending the money that is available rather than multiplying the amount that is allocated. And then let us talk about the linkages between population dynamics and sustainable development. And then there are innumerable kind of linkages between population dynamics and health and sustainable development. And then the document also acknowledges the same, and it is a good sign, and it is a right step in the right direction. Talking about the linkages, some issues specifically need attention. You know, providing adequate healthcare for aging population, and then even family planning services in developing countries like India. These are, you know, important aspects. And then the factors that lead to population dynamics, and they affect also the other areas that are addressed by the SDGs. For instance, the implications of population growth in terms of environmental challenges, whether it is global warming or biodiversity, and food security. Food security is an important issue in many of the countries, including the sub-Saharan African countries. And then water availability and other issues also need attention. And then what kind of role demographer can play in the whole context of SDGs? Quantification of the measurable indicators so that the progress for a physical activity in the whole process. And then we have 169 targets. Even if you have 2 indicators per target, you will have 338 indicators. Imagine. Over a period of time. And then if you look at that, very huge exercise is involved in that. And then the success of whole monitoring exercise depends to a great extent on the availability of data. And not only availability of data, even if data is available, the capacity has to be there to measure that accurately and then report it timely in a more meaningful manner to the policymakers, to the program managers. Researchers have our own language. We talk in our own language, our own technical jargon. But how to make it simplified so that the policymakers, the program managers, the implementers they get, the message of the reports that are submitted and prepared by us. And then for SDGs, the estimates, because you need baseline data to track the progress over a period of time at the midpoint or at the end line point. For SDGs, the estimates that are available for 2015 would form the baseline figures. So what are the sources which will give me the baseline figures? That is my first question. In case of India, NFHS 4 happened during 2015-16. Perhaps NFHS 4 can give us some indicators, some data on some indicators for the baseline figures. But a census was carried out in 2011, and we are talking about 2015. It is mid-census period. So otherwise, you need mid-census period, some estimates and projections. And then specifically, you also need reliable information and data about size, growth, distribution, and characteristics of the population. And this will be guiding the policymakers in developing the policy, and then support the program implementers in implementation of the SDGs, and also in assessing the progress towards the achievement of the goals. Of course, population census is one of the important sources for this. And then while continuing on the same issue, we need also periodic nationwide surveys with robust study design, and data, high quality of data and reliability of the data is more important. And then when you are talking about surveys and nationwide surveys and all, you also have to think about how to adopt new information communication technologies. From pen and paper, we are moving towards CAPI, computer assisted personal interviews and all. And so if you do that, then you will get real-time data. Data quality can be monitored timely, and then you won't, spend more time on data entry and data processing and all. And then another aspect related to this, most of us face this problem, having open access to the data, existing data. Many times you don't have access to data. And so that unless you have open access to the data, you cannot, provide evidence for policy making, or you cannot, give inputs for the program implementers. And then dissemination of the microdata with adequate, many surveys we have. You have only aggregate data. When you are doing analysis, you need household data. But you have to make hell of an effort to get access to household level data, micro level data. So these kind of issues need to be addressed. And then adequate protection safeguards also are required in terms of protection, privacy and confidentiality. And then here, when you are talking about data, monitoring over a period of time, tracking the progress, there I think role of demographers, statisticians, social scientists, and development practitioners is much more crucial, and it is visible to us. And then association like IASP also has can play also active role in this. In fact, we had initial discussion with UNFPA chief, Nandaji, myself, and our treasurer. And then the first meeting itself, he has, he has given useful inputs in this direction. And then association like IASP has to play an active role, because we are present across the country, in any state, in any district, in any region. Our senior demographers and demographers can get into the process and then make their contribution in the right direction. And then because you need also multi-sectoral approach rather than working in isolation when you are aiming to achieve the SDGs. And then you also need evidence-based data, and in terms of that, poverty, hunger, wash, and then financial inclusion, the kind of initiatives we have, in the recent past in India as well, and food security, health, education, infrastructure, etc. And finally, this is a quotation from one of the Upanishads called Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It says, "Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhat bhave." Shanti, shanti, shanti. It means, may all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one suffer. Peace, peace, peace to all. I think this is a universal message, irrespective of time and space, and that this message should be the take-home message for us. I think that's all I have to say, and then we will have more meaningful discussion in the next 3 days. let me thank again the UNFPA chief for supporting IASP in a big way, financially, technically, and physically being present here, and he will be intellectually also, he will be supporting us. And I'm also, on behalf of IASP, I wish to thank Dr. Manoj Panda and his team from IEG, and my colleagues, my co-office bearers and executive members, and esteemed BOT members, and all the senior demographers, young demographers who have come from Kashmir to Kanyakumari throughout the length and breadth of the country. And I am thankful to one and all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. President, for the very enthralling and very educative first address for the IASP. Definitely, there are a lot of take-home messages, and IASP will definitely do its best in carrying out the messages you have given. Now I have the pleasure to request Mr. Diago to give the keynote address. Please, sir.
Good morning. Mr. Manoj Panda, Director of IEG, Mr. Somayalu, President of the Indian Association for the Study of Population, other authorities and colleagues in the days from the association, colleagues from the UN, friends, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me express that I'm really happy to be with you this morning, sharing this very important success of the meeting of the Indian Association for the Study of Population. I think it's one of the oldest associations in the developing world. And, you know, it's a pleasure for me as a demographer and an economist really to share with you this morning. I've been related also to other associations in other countries, but certainly, you know, it's a matter of pride really to be with you here in India. I really appreciate the presidential address just made by Professor Somayalu. I think that he raised very important things, and I'll try not to be repetitive. But certainly, let me say that these are very exciting times to be in India. India is a country where the economy is growing fast with rates that have been around 7% per year. Perhaps one of the fastest growing economies in the developing world. And I would say, in comparing with other developed countries as well, I think that India has been doing very well in terms of economic growth. However, there are a lot of challenges still for India. And these basically relate to what it was just mentioned a few minutes ago. Challenges that relate to the issues of poverty, exclusion, discrimination, etc. So in any sense, you know, just to be here in India and to see, you know, the importance of keeping economic growth, but at the same time addressing these social, economic, and environmental issues that constitute the challenge, really is something that for one person coming from outside is really a very interesting experience. It has been mentioned, you know, about the SDGs. And I think that I will not abound on you know, providing more information about this. But certainly my previous duty in New York was to work with UNFPA Executive Office to participate and contribute to the preparation of the SDGs and support the governments in this process. I could not tell you the lengthy negotiations and discussions actually took about 2.5 years to really came with more or less the final product of the SDGs as you see them now. And frankly, to my frustration, the issues of population were not really reflected as population per se. I think that we always knew that population was perhaps the elephant in the room, a big elephant in the room. Nobody wanted to touch population because of the political implications that addressing, the implications of population growth, change, etc., had to many countries in the world. So I would say that many delegates from developed and developing countries decided not to look at this issue because it was really contentious. So we were in a position really to try to do our best in terms of reflecting some of the key elements of population change in the agenda without necessarily mentioning population as a topic, as an issue of crucial importance. So then you see in the SDGs many targets, many goals, but many targets in goals 3, 5, even 4, 10, 11 that really relate to population issues, but there's no comprehensive approach to the issue of population in the SDGs. Perhaps there's, if you see the declaration that accompanies the lengthy number of targets, then you will see a little bit more about data, the importance of data. You will see a reference to demographic dividend, but certainly that was not certainly reflected in the SDGs as such. But India was, very supportive in the process of discussions. And now, India has done very well in the MDGs. I think that on the average, India accomplished many of the aims in terms of the MDGs. And now we see India preparing to, define their national development, sustainable development plans to really, address and work in the SDG agenda. And we see actively engaged many institutions, particularly NITI Aayog, now thinking about developing action plans, strategic plans, and also the long-term vision for 3, 5, and 15 years, which I think is great. I think it's great to have that approach and to use the national planning process to incorporate, those worldwide reflections in terms of how we link, in a purposely way, the social, the economic, and the environmental variables and aspects in our plans. And really that task is really difficult, really complicated, because we are not really formed to think in a holistic way. We tend to plan by sectors, and we cross our fingers that these sectors coordinate between each other to produce, a more synergistic approach. So that's a challenge for not only for India, but for many countries that are trying to reflect the SDGs, which are comprehensive in its approach, and see how, from a public sector that works in silos, how, they will be able to come together and, synergistically implement the SDGs. So that's a challenge for India. That's a challenge for everybody. Now, the point here that I like to make is that we think, and this was one of the discussions we had with the president of the association in my office, we think that this is actually an opportunity to reflect population change in the development plans, sustainable development plans of India. I think we should not miss this opportunity to really bring those multi-sector holistic approaches that the population view brings to ensure that these are captured in the national development plans. And I think that's one task that as an association, I think you should have in terms of linking, participating with the national authorities in the formulation of the sustainable development plans. Not only, I would say, at the national level, but also at the state level, because there are about 14 states now asking for UN support to begin to define their state level sustainable development plans. So we should have, really an approach to participate actively in this process and enrich that level of analysis, that level of prioritization that any sustainable development process will have to take. Now, to conclude on the SDGs, I would like to say and highlight the importance of India, not only for achieving the SDGs at the national level and at the state level, but also the importance of India to the whole world. Why? Because of numbers. India actually is responsible for, depending on the variable and the indicator of the SDGs, will be responsible from, let's say, 30 to 50% of the success of achieving the SDGs at the global level. Think about maternal mortality. Almost 50% of maternal deaths are happening in India. If we are going to reduce globally maternal deaths, India will have a critical responsibility to reduce its mortality rates here in India, and of course, it will impact in the global indicators. So you see, India doesn't have only the responsibility to care for themselves in terms of achieving the SDGs, but also it will have a global implication of what we do here in terms of what we'll see reflected in the global level. So you can imagine the importance of India in doing that. Certainly that importance is because India's population size, India's some lagging in some of the indicators from the MDGs now reflected also in the SDGs. And that's India. India is going to be the most populous country by 2022, even advancing China in that category. So we have a responsibility globally and nationally to really look for a critical way, a synergistical way to implement the SDGs. Now let me come back to the issues of why then population dynamics is fundamental for planning for the achievement of the SDGs. And here I'll go very quickly with some of the information that you already know regarding India. And we know that India has been going through a very rapid process of demographic transition. Fertility and mortality have been drastically reduced in the last decades and will continue to decline in the future. Age and sex structures in India are changing. We have more people, more young people in many states. I mean, we have 358 million young people, 10 to 24 years of age in India. Is the highest, the most important youth population in the world. We have also, an increasing number of, in proportion of older people. Both of these groups are coexisting at this point of time, and in the next 10 years, these groups will be, together, the bulk of the Indian population, representing a very high proportion. People in India are increasing mobile. Migration is happening from rural to small towns, from small towns to bigger cities, and also to the metros. Also, fueling this migration process is the issues of agrarian distress, something that we need to think about what's happening in the agricultural sector, what's happening in the rural sector. But I say that, looking at these changes, these demographic changes, really India has many opportunities at the same time, as well as challenges. And I would like to be optimistic and concentrate on the positives of this equation. First, because of this large, young, and working population, India can really benefit from a demographic dividend. You have a large pool of young people that could be employed, could be participating more actively if they are educated, skilled, and given opportunities. So that's the first demographic bonus or demographic dividend that I see in India. The young population, the demographic dividend. A second bonus can be potentially obtained from aging. We speak now of the second demographic dividend when older people, as they save and invest throughout their lifetime, they come to an age in which they begin to disinvest and to use those savings to promote, economic development, social development. The typical example is the grandmother paying for the school of the grandchild, no? So these are reinvesting these resources in development, social and economic development. So that's a demographic bonus that India could have in their hands. If the bonus could be obtained from enhancing women's economic participation in public and economic life. Today, only less than 30% of women participate in the economy. Imagine what will be the potential of growth of India if that participation of women increases to the levels of other countries in the region, 60, 65%, almost doubling the participation of women in the economy. So that's the third bonus. The fourth bonus could be coming from migration, because migration really gives possibilities, but particularly to the poorest people coming to the cities to access better job opportunities, also to generate remittances and to improve their skills. Urbanization is the fifth bonus that could be at hand of India if we use urbanization and plan for it to enhance the capacity of cities to address opportunities and also to use the economies of scale for social progress and economic growth. So you see there are 5 related demographic bonuses that India could take hand to really improve their economic, social, and environmental development. However, these bonuses are not automatic. They are not given. Policies and investments and programs will have to be there to ensure that we cash on these 5 bonuses. Good urban planning, good policies in terms of employment generation, good policies in terms of allowing women to participate in the economy and also invest in young people, because that's a long-lasting investment for sustainable development in the future. So the issue here is that right policies, right investments need to be in place to really cash this demographic bonus. So now let's look at beyond the averages, because India is a very vast country, and there are very important gaps and differences between geographies, rural-urban areas, the rich and the poor segments, among population groups, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and minority groups. And what we are seeing is that demographic transition in India is not one. There are several demographic transitions taking place according to these geographies, according to these groups. And I think we need to understand better the factors that are behind these demographic transitions in different geographies, among different population groups. And going deeper in this analysis, for example, we see that the northern states, the young population is the majority, especially in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan. While in southern states, we are seeing very rapid process of aging. It's like Kerala, for example, where we already have proportions of 12% of the population 60 plus. How we bring and how we can profit from these differentials in India? And one could say that northern states can provide the talent and become the resources reservoirs for their own future, but also for the country as a whole, provided that India invests in the education, health, and skilling of the population in the north, the younger population in the north. That's an important thing, to begin to discuss, because we are always saying, Bihar is not doing well, the population rates are growing, etc. But again, we are adopting a view where we are just taking individually states by states and analyzing them. But if we take a different approach and see how states that are not doing well now could really become, the supporters, the providers of a critical element for sustainable development, which is quality of human resources for speeding up and boosting the growth of India in the future. So we need to take that approach. It's not the responsibility of Bihar, because here in Kerala we are fine. No, it's because if we want to grow as a country, I think we need to make the most of the demographic transition that still to happen in many of the northern states. Okay. I will not go through, more details about, the differential aspects, but we know fertility is still high in many states, in many districts. We know about the intention of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to launch this Parivar Vikas mission. I think is an intention to address high fertility in districts. But I think we need to go beyond the supply side approaches for addressing population stabilizations. These are needed. Of course, we need services. We need, supply chains in place. We need physicians that are responsible and well-trained to be able to provide the family planning. But we need to look at also demand side issues in India. And here, one aspect that, as UNFPA, we always highlight is the issue of gender inequality as a critical factor to really boost economy and address the issues of inequality and exclusion. Already I referred to the economic participation, but gender inequality has many, reflections in terms of, discrimination in schools, in nutrition, et cetera. So to address high fertility and to really begin to move in the direction of capitalizing or cashing the demographic bonuses that I explained, I think we need to really begin to address the low status of women in society because that's a critical factor for high fertility and also for limiting women's participation and also reducing women's decision-making on several fronts: reproduction, consumption, participation at economic level. Early marriage, lack of access of young girls and boys to sexuality education, limit reach and access to quality and reproductive health services are factors that we need to understand better and we need to consider when we are moving to schemes that tend aim to stabilize population. Gender equality, hence, is an essential element of sustainable development and will also be a positive factor to boost economic and social development. Now, let me finalize with some reflections, and I think I'm following also some of the elements that were presented in the speech and the address that was given before. Now, the question is perhaps a very important question for this audience and for this event. What can demographers and researchers, yourselves, can do to support India's aim to population stabilization and to achieve the MDGs? That's a critical question that should really go through the many sessions you are having here. We have got some highlights, some inputs in the presentation before, but I would say that if the focus of the SDGs is on leaving no one behind, population experts like you should go beyond the traditional demographic analysis. It's not only about data and numbers. It's about generating evidence of what I've said before, of the exclusion, of the discrimination, of the bonuses in the weighting, by geographies, by rural-urban areas, by economic strata, by minorities, and advocacy, using that data for advocacy to really have an effect on the way policies and programs are being formulated in the country. That's a critical role for you, for the experts in population and development, for demographers using that data, not only to present us with very nice, clean maps and tables. We need to go beyond that to really try to identify what are the key relationships between the variables and how, by using data, we could be able to understand better how policies and programs could be more effective in India. So in other words, what I'm saying is that population experts and demographers need to anticipate the effects of population change on sustainable development. For example, studying migration, urban growth, aging, changing family patterns, etc., and linking this to sustainable development issues such as poverty, inequality, exclusion, and even to stretch a little bit that analysis to try to go to more complex relationships and studying, for example, its impact in land, viability, use, water, climate change, and environment. This is the kind of relevance of the demographers and researchers in population, really to bring quality of research for policymaking and program planning. Population experts also should have the responsibility to create knowledge and share this knowledge with policymakers and the people in the development sector. It's not only that we know, we have analyzed, and that knowledge basically is contained, is a small group of the illuminated in population and demography. No, we need really to use that data to really engage with policymakers and enable them to understand better how social processes, economic processes, environmental factors relate to population dynamics. Because I think that sometimes in many countries I've seen that that's not the level of understanding in terms of the linkages. So policies are enacted, maybe are not effective because they have missed the crucial relationship with the human beings, which means population. So my final message really is to really encourage you to bring population dynamics at the center stage of national discussions on development policy and program planning. Finally, it's great to be here. It's great to support the Indian Association for the Study of Population. We are really open and keen to help you work together in a joint effort to really use the evidence coming from the data analysis, the demographic evidence to really support the process of decision-making in India and also in the States. Many thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Diego, for that very knowledgeable and important messages for the demographers in the context of SDGs. IASP will make all efforts to make your message forward. Now we have some other agenda in the inaugural function. We will have the release of souvenir and abstracts by the chief guest. May I request Jitendra to organize that? Souvenir. Now we have one more book for release, Reproductive Health of Adolescents in Delhi Slums by Dr. Suresh Sharma, Dr. Yamini Gupta, Dr. Gagandeep Kaur. I request the other two authors to come onto the stage for the release. Thank you. Now, in the presidential address, as Dr. Somayajulu has just mentioned about the online version of the Demography India, we are just requesting our chief guest to inaugurate the online version of Demography India. Please, sir.
He is the managing director, Dr. Brajesh here. Unfortunately, Professor K.K. Singh could not join us. Any editorial committee members? Dr. Sanjay Kumar? Please come. Come.
Come, Sanjay.
These are editorial committee members.
Yeah.
Any other editorial committee members?
That's done.
Yeah.
It's there live?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You can sign up, you can log in.
And you can report and submit online.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Diego. Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Now we have the felicitations to senior demographers. Dr. Request Dr. Mohan Chandra Nair, the General Secretary, to organize this. Please. Yeah, yeah.
Respected Mr. Diego Roberto Palacios and other respected dignitaries of and on the dais. Once again, I extend my hearty welcome to all of you this 37th annual conference of the IASP at IEG Delhi. My responsibility is to invite the great demographers, those who contributed much for the demography and the association in the past several years. The executive committee had decided to felicitate 4 senior demographers for this year. Sri N. Ramarabu from work in census, then Professor P.S. Nair, Professor C.P. Prahasham, and Sri R.P. Tyagi. Sri N. Ramaravu is the very great dedicated work in the census department, and not only in India, in several other countries. He is invited to organize the census operation in several other foreign countries. He is the recipient of silver medal from the government of India in 3 consecutive census years, 1961, 71, 81. Also the recipient of Royal Award of Cemetery Officer in Cambodian government 2010. Then I request Ed Ramaravu, sir, you please lead the dais. And I request Dr. Ravi Shankar to read the citation of Sri Ramaravu.
Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to read the note of felicitation Sri N. Ramarao. Mr. N. Ramarao obtained a postgraduate degree in mathematics in 1955 and diploma in statistics in 1961 from Madras University. His interest in demography began with pursuit of certificate course in demography at DTRC, Mumbai in 1967. He got trained in population studies at the London School of Economics, London in 1984. In the same year, he studied the UK census history and practice at the Office of the Population Census and Surveys. He was involved in demographic research as a research associate with the East West Center Population Institute of Howard, USA in 1986, 1989, and 1991. At present, he served as an international census and survey consultant. His association with the Office of the Census started in 1961, and it continued for the more than 3 decades in various capacity at Chennai, Mumbai, and New Delhi. Mr. Rao, as a Deputy Registrar General Census, New Delhi, played a major role in organizing the 1991 census successfully. He also had a voice in several key assignments in sample registration system and other sample surveys with the government of Tamil Nadu as well as Maharashtra. His valuable contribution continued for the 2011 Indian census as a member of the technical committee. Mr. Rao provided consultancy to various governments, and these includes UNFPA Chief Technical Advisor for 1993 census of Gambia, West Africa, UN, census consultant for Bhutan, Vietnam, Nigeria, East Timor, Palestine, and 5 SADC countries in South Africa, etc. As Chief Technical Advisor for the Census and Surveys at the Royal Government of Cambodia, she conducted the first demographic survey in 1996 and the first general population census of Cambodia in 1998, which is considered as the landmark for Cambodian census. Mr. Rao was a recipient of Silver Medal from the Government of India for the 3 consecutive censuses, namely 1961, 71, and 81. He also received the Royal Order of Summary Officer Medal from the Prime Minister of Cambodia for outstanding support provided for the survey census for Cambodia in 2010. He authored more than 15 research articles, books, and actively participated in international and national conferences and census workshops. He also served as a member of many prestigious working committees, boards. Mr. Rao has been associated with this Indian Association for the Study of Population for a long as a life member and actively contributing towards fulfilling its mission. The Indian Association for the Study of Population is pleased to facilitate Mr. Ramarao for his excellence and illustrious contribution in the field of demography on the occasion of this 37th annual conference at the Institute of Economic Growth, University of Delhi, Delhi. Thank you.
Please, sir.
Mr. President of the meeting, Chairman of the meeting, Mr. Panda Saab, Mr. Diego of the UNFPA, Mr. Somayajalu, President of the IASP, Mr. Nair and Mr. Sharma, and distinguished delegates for this conference. I express my sincere thanks to the IASP for giving me this honor. And as has been already mentioned by the various speakers, demographers have been playing a very key role in India ever since the ushering in of the planning era, more than 6 decades ago. And the IASP, as it was conceived in 1972, I was also in a way observing the various busy activities SP Jain and others were doing in canvassing people to join. And this was history. I'm talking of 1972. And the IASP has been doing a yeoman service to the demographic community. And the various projects they have undertaken, the conferences like this, which they have been organizing, in which the senior demographers as well as students participate and contribute, and also the various awards which they instituted for budding demographers. All these things go a long way in producing a lot of results and also enabling the government to, in the matter of population policies and also in monitoring and evaluation of the population schemes. I wish the IASP all success in its future, and I thank you once again Dr. Somiyajulu, and the other members of the team, the Governing Council of the ASP, for this honor. And once again, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Next senior demographer going to be felicitated is Professor P.S. Nair, the former professor and head Department of Demography, University of Kerala, and also the former professor and head Department of Population Studies, Botswana University. Then the director of Population Research Center, University of Kerala. Then he not only the senior demographer, he served the association in various capacities as joint secretary, vice president in several years. And he is also one of my teacher. And he is an encouragement, encourage all of us to work in the field of demography. Please, sir, come. I request Dr. Manoj to read the citation of Dr. Professor P.S. Nair.
Wait a minute.
Good morning, all of you, and respected members in the dais, and all my colleagues, friends, and my seniors. Indian Association for Study for Population is privileged to facilitate Professor P. Sadashivam Nair, who is at present Director of Research at International Center for Gandhian Thoughts, Thiruvananthapuram. Professor P.S. Nair has the distinction of having three postgraduate degrees. He pursued his first postgraduate degree in economics from University of Kerala in 1966, subsequently MSc in demography from Department of Statistics and Demography from University of Kerala in 1968. He was recipient of full fellowship by United Nations Development Program to undertake MA in demography, and followed it with doctoral program in demography from Vrije University, Brussels, Belgium. Professor Nair started his illustrious career as an analyst in Department of Statistics, University of Kerala in 1968, and went on to become professor and head of the Department of Demography at University of Kerala in 1996. He also worked as a social demographer at Department of Community Health in Christian Medical College, Vellore, and as a social scientist in Gandhigram Institute of Rural Health and Family Planning, Madurai. Professor Nair had the honor of being visiting research fellow at Netherlands Inter-University Demography, Hague, Netherlands, during 1982 to 1986. He was a visiting professor at Department of Sociology, University of Manitoba, Canada. He was appointed as a reader at Department of Migration and Urban Studies at International Institute for Population Sciences, Bombay in 1986. He also served as a professor at the Population Research Center, JSS Institute of Economic Research, Dharwad. After retirement, he served as a professor and head of the Department of Population Studies at University of Botswana, from 2002 to 2014. During his tenure, he has played an important role as a mentor for many young demographers in India and abroad. Professor Nair was a member of important bodies such as Executive Board member representing African region of International Society for Genetology, Netherlands, member of IUSSP, Population Association of America, Union of African Population Studies, Asian Population Association, Honorary Fellow of Kerala Academy of Science, and Vice President of Population Association of Botswana. He was also involved in large-scale projects, including National Family Health Survey in Kerala, Botswana Demographic Survey, Reproductive and Child Health Programs in Kerala, multi-country program on social science research in the field of HIV/AIDS funded by Royal Tropical Institute, Netherlands. In his elusive career, he has more than 100 research papers presented in seminars, published in international and national journals. He has also worked for UNFPA as a trainer for distance learning program. Professor P.S. Nair, as a founder member, had a long association with IASP. He was elected as vice president during 1998-2000, served as a joint secretary, and was in editorial and advisory boards of Demography India. IASP facilitates Professor P.S. Nair for his outstanding contribution in research and teaching in demography on the occasion of 37th Annual Conference. Thank you.
Respected Chairperson, Mr. Diego, and the President of IASP, Dr. Somaya Ajulu, and the Director of IEG, and General Secretary of IASP, Dr. Mohanendra Nair, and other distinguished guests on the dais and off the dais, and the senior demographers in India, and other colleagues and students. I know this is a very unforgettable moment in my life to stand before you all to receive this award or recognition from the IASP. I have a long association, as mentioned, with the IASP. To start with IASP, I can tell you, I am one of the founder members of the IASP. And I still remember actually the first IASP conference organized in Mumbai at that time, the TRC. I remember the presence of Ashok Mitra, the first president has mentioned. He was at that time, he was the Census Commissioner as well as the Secretary to President of India, Ashok Mitra. Such a nice gentleman at that time. He was so, I was very young at that time, comparatively young at that time. I was coming from Gandhigram at that time. And it just happened, I had two papers. And he was so fascinated, and he called me, and at some interval, he called me and he talked about that also. And then again, it was a privilege to work with, the very senior demographers or the founding demographers of India, like Professor Desai, is no more, P.B. Desai, who coined the term, development is the best contraceptive in the first World Conference in Bucharest, World Population Conference in Bucharest. And then Professor Ashish Bose, then Professor Premi, and in that chain, the senior professor left is Professor Subhash Gulati, who later became the president. So an array of demographers, mainly from IEG. So IEG has a long history, and this is the second time I think I'm standing in this hall, since very long time. And so the association with IEG and also IASP has been very long, and I happen to learn a lot, about IASP, about IASP as well as the development, population activities in India, etc., etc. It's a great thing. And as mentioned, I happen to work in many places actually, and in India and abroad. My last sojourn was in Africa, because Africa was the only continent left earlier. But at the end, I got an opportunity to work in Botswana also for about 12 years, and now came back. And now I am in Kerala, not very free, still, with God's grace, I'm associated with one NGO called International Center for Gandhian Thoughts, and they have 3 wings of service, research, and training. And I head the unit of research there. Anyway, with these some 30, 40 years of experience with the Indian demography and with Indian demographers, I feel very honored and I feel very happy to be here to receive this memento or receive this appreciation. Thank you very much for. Thank you so much to the organizers, especially the president of the association, general secretary of the association, to consider me to honor in this occasion. Thanks a lot.
Next senior demographer is Professor C.P. Prakasham, one of the senior professors of IIPS, and he also served the association in various capacities. He also is very active in the GIS system in IIPS. So please, sir, please come to. I request Dr. J.K. Basu to read the citation.
Good morning. Good morning to all dignitaries in the dais and all participants in this August gathering. I really feel myself very privileged to read the citation for Dr. Professor C.P. Prakasham. The Indian Association for the Study of Population, IASP, is proud to facilitate Dr. Professor C.P. Prakasham for his excellence and immense contribution in the field of population, health, and family welfare and large-scale socio-economic and demographic survey in the country on the occasion of its 37th annual conference at Institute of Economic Growth, Delhi University, Delhi. Dr. Prakasham, a very senior demographer, academician, social researcher. He holds a doctorate degree in demography from Bombay University, diploma and certificate from IIPS Mumbai, and postgraduate degree in mathematics from SB University, Tirupati. He joined International Institute for Population Sciences, IIPS Mumbai, as faculty in 1980 and retired as professor of Department of Public Health and Mortality Studies on 31st June 2007 after superannuation of service. He was in charge of data center of IIPS and managed it very meticulously. He was